here if you were sure.
None of us would be here. None of us had multiple sex partners, bro. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. How many sins you got, bro? Go ahead. Go ahead. We're here for hours.
We're here for yours.
We're here for hours.
We're here for yours.
Hours.
My thing is,
go ahead.
don't
Can we go
be
Matlock versus Monroe is definitely the poster child for cases that have shamelessness, disrespect, and most definitely crazy as the key elements. Mr. Matlock was in court because he had reasonable cause to deny and doubt the paternity of Ms. Monroe's child. Apparently, Ms. Monroe had invited her former lover into the home that she shared with Mr. Matlock while he was away for business.
Please be seated.
Hello, Your Honor. This is a case of Matlock versus Monroe.
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone. Mr. Matlock,
Yes.
You say that a few years back you were suddenly called away on family business.
Yes,
while
Your Honor.
absent.
Interestingly, Ms. Monroe had doubts of her own, and as well as a line of defense regarding why she brought someone else into the home, Mr. Matlock speaks on why he had a very long absence from the home he shared with Ms. Monroe. Was this the weirdest arrangement or what?
You admit that you have serious doubts about the paternity of your child as well. You argue that when Mr. Matlock left on family business, he stopped answering your phone calls and texts for an entire month.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's not correct.
In your defense, you say you believed he was never coming back again.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Matlock denies ever receiving any calls from Ms. Monroe, even though she strongly insists she tried to reach him several times. He definitely felt like he shouldn't have to share the time with his son with Ms. Monroe. He also implies that Ms. Monroe may have been thinking he was having affairs on the side, but he clearly didn't care. They got into a bitter argument. It was safe to say there was no love lost between the two parties.
He never answered my calls, and this went on for a whole month.
So, Mr. Matlock, were you getting phone calls from Ms. Monroe and not answering?
No, Your Honor, I wasn't. I would talk to her when I called her, but I don't feel like when I'm spending time with my son, I should have to drop spending time with my son to call her every waking minute.
If I'm your girlfriend, you should care.
In a shocking twist of events, Ms. Monroe tells the court how she tried her best to maintain communication with Mr. Matlock and failed continuously. And as a result of this failure, she decided to move her ex-I to their home. But despite all of this, the parties had a conversation and settled their differences before Mr. Matlock returned.
Ms. Monroe, when he went out of town, did he voluntarily call you at all while he was gone?
Lies.
Maybe
Not one call.
Maybe the whole time he was gone.
Okay, so 2 or 3 times you did speak to him.
Yes.
But when you called him, he didn't return your
He
call.
would not answer my call.
One fine day, the plot thickened. When Mr. Monroe got a call informing him of Ms. Monroe's pregnancy, the call was not coming from the house, but from a totally unexpected source. Interestingly, Ms. Monroe also informed him that the baby wasn't his, and so he disappeared out of their lives.
I get a phone call from my sister. What's up?
You ain't who
May
you
pregnant.
pretended to be.
Whoa, what you mean May pregnant? I just talked to her
I
on the
told
phone.
you that.
You didn't tell me that. You told me that after I talked to my sister, and you told my sister that you were pregnant. Anyway, after I found out that she was pregnant.
Ms. Monroe shares the reason why she had totally ruled out the possibility of Mr. Monroe being the dad, and it is quite plausible. Mr. Matlock, on the other hand, definitely believed the child could be anybody else's, including the court's clerk, Jerome, but his. Absolutely outrageous and quite scandalous.
Hey,
And that 18
this is my
months, we
baby
didn't
and I'm
ever use
leaving now.
protection.
Okay, you assumed he may not be the father based upon the fact it had been 18 months and you hadn't gotten pregnant.
Yeah, and within that little amount of time, I got pregnant.
But is the truth that you really didn't know who the child's father was?
Exactly.
It actually, when I had my 5-year-old.
It turns out that after his grand exit, Mr. Matlock didn't even know Ms. Monroe had put to bed until a friend who is related to Ms. Monroe informed him in the coldest way possible about the child's arrival. Someone else was in the hospital with Ms. Monroe when she had given birth. In an even messier turn of events, Mr. Matlock receives information about Ms. Monroe's affairs with yet another guy. Despite the fact that he was the one paying child support, Ms. Monroe and Mr. Matlock get into another shady argument. Why was he paying child support if he was not the child's father?
Do you know for certain or you just doubt?
Once you say you are not the father to a man, that baby ain't mine no more. I didn't hear from her.
What point did she then claim that you might be the father?
December 31st, 08. Me and her sister are friends.
Okay.
So I call her sister every New Year's. Happy New Year's, what's up?
The turning point for Mr. Monroe was when he missed the court date in the process of confirming the paternity of Ms. Monroe's child, a date he claimed he was unaware of. And that was how he came to be the child's father by default and was placed on mandatory child support. Mr. Matlock explains to the court exactly how the situation with Ms. Monroe was affecting his domestic and love life, and it is quite sad. Ms. Monroe snipes at him.
And if you would have been real about it, if you would have been real about it in the beginning, I would have been there for you.
What you done
You
for
don't
her?
never know. If you wouldn't have said, hey, it's not your baby, and would have just kept it real and meant, hey, it's a possibility, we could have worked on it, and we could have been still probably been together. You
No,
never
I
know.
told your
You
sister
said
that.
out of your mouth. You
I
said
told your
you are
sister
not
that.
the father.
The court calls Mr. Matlock's relative to the stand as a witness, and it is as messy as World War I between the ladies as they try to convey their sentiments to the judge. In no time, the judge has to pull out the gavel and calm everyone down. The court pulls out a chart to discuss the possible conception dates.
You're working triple shifts.
I'm killing myself.
Trying to make sure you're paying the child
Trying
support.
to find a second job right now. Not only to pay child support, but make sure that Christmas, birthday, school time, my son got what he needs.
So now, Ms. Monroe,
Now it's all about your
Ms.
son.
Monroe, are you receiving
If this is my baby, I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna take care of your daughter.
At this point, everybody is tired, and emotions are at an all-time high. The only way to resolve the issue is to get to the bottom of the paternity results. Clearly, Ms. Monroe couldn't handle the truth as she walks out of the court immediately after the verdict is announced and sobs uncontrollably, losing all composure. In the light of the truth,
These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics in the case of Matlock versus Monroe. When it comes to 5-year-old Kenya, Mr. Matlock, you are not.
I knew it. Go find your baby. I told you I wasn't the father of that child. Knew it from the beginning. Trifling. Knew it.
could you imagine dragging all 3 of your lovers to court? Well, this was the very special case of Holman versus Drumgold had everyone in court quite shook, as she had brought 3 men who could possibly be her baby's father to court to confirm which one was the real deal. Even more messy was the fact that she was not dating any of them, and they clearly had no respect for each other.
Mr. Rich,
Go back up.
you came here to get an answer.
I have not called him lately.
I don't care, man.
I mean, hey, my phone says it all.
Calm down.
Your Honor,
Calm
that was
down.
a nice speech. That was a nice speech, but that's all it was, a speech.
Sloppy,
if
yo.
Leanne could have had it her way and let one of us know, we wouldn't be here today.
This was the most intense courtroom session in a minute, as the arguments on who the baby's father might be intensified, and a visibly emotional Ms. Holman couldn't hold back her emotions as she completely lost it. Mr. Rich, who had taken the witness stand, simply hoped he was the baby's father, as he loved her a lot. It was clear Mr. Rich was very pissed and was not afraid to show it.
That's okay.
Truth coming out.
I'm not about-
listen.
I'm not a bad person. I do bad things.
Look at
There's
me.
a difference.
Look at me. You've admitted to where you've gone wrong, and you've also allowed us to see a little piece of what your real heart. I'm here with you and for you.
Apparently, Ms. Holman couldn't really figure out when exactly she got down with Mr. Rich. Mr. Drumgold introduces a third party to court, who was also one of Ms. Holman's lovers. Ms. Holman clarifies that Mr. Drumgold had been aware of her rendezvous with Mr. Rich, but not with Mr. Matthews. It seemed like Ms. Holman liked to keep things as crystal as possible, or not. Aware or not, Mr. Drumgold was clearly not happy he wasn't the only one with the claim to her baby's paternity.
And in that testimony, she said you are a great man, and she's never known a man as good as you. So much so that she didn't think she was good enough for you. That's the part. Just stick with us, okay? We're gonna get through this. So, Ms. Holman and Mr. Drumgold, throughout the testimony, it came out that there were other possible fathers.
As soon as Mr. Matthews is ushered into the courtroom, he is welcomed with some beep-worthy expletives from a visibly past Mr. Rich. Attempts at furthering the proceedings keep getting interrupted by choice words from Mr. Rich, and so the judge excuses him from the court. This moment is quite emotional for Mr. Rich and all parties involved as he exits the court.
And I'd like to hear from him. Jerome, will you please escort Mr. Matthews into the courtroom? Mr. Rich, calm down. Just take a
It
deep
is
breath.
what it is,
Listen,
though.
you want the truth? That's what I'm trying to get for you, but you gotta let me get it.
Mr. Matthews acknowledges the possibility that the baby could be his, but Mr. Drumgold doesn't find his confessions of affection funny and isn't here for a possible three-way relationship, as this may mean that he's not as special as he thought he was in Ms. Holman's life. Clarifications are made, and it looks like Mr. Drumgold may have to be content with to what extent he mattered in Ms. Holman's life.
Mr. Matthews, I'd like to ask you a few questions concerning the nature of your relationship with Ms. Holman. Can you tell the court, how did you meet? How long have you been in a relationship?
Well, I met Mrs. Holman.
Not to be defeated, Ms. Holman goes absolutely ballistic on Mr. Drumgold as she does not like his judgmental tone, and a shouting match ensues with Ms. Drumgold clearly losing it. She wasn't going to allow anyone to shame her, and so the only other thing louder than her shamelessness in the courtroom was her voice.
But yeah, you want this baby to be mine.
Okay, now granted, have I been with all three of these men? Yes. How do you know there's only these three men? Because I gave them these three men name. This is not true. Here it is. It's ugly. Now I'm trying to get to the bottom of it.
Exactly.
She said that was a good speech.
No.
The bottom line is this. None of them will be here if you were sure.
It's a field day in court, and Judge Lauren has to clear Mr. Drumgold of any delusional feelings he may be harboring concerning the issue of the baby's paternity. Ms. Holman makes further clarification on her conception dates and why she strongly believes Mr. Drumgold is her baby's father out of the three men in court. This admission seems to get everyone even more agitated as they continue to bicker and scream at each other.
My thing is,
Go ahead.
don't
Can we
keep
go with the
saying
result?
there's no
Can we go
possibility
with the
that it couldn't be mine. That's
Mr.
my thing.
Drumgold, I think you have now entered that space where you're so angry because you feel like because she's saying she really believes it's your baby, the true layers within her testimony.
Was this the most understanding judge ever, or what? The constant bickering with Mr. Drumgold has Ms. Holman crying so much, and she loses her reins on her emotions even more as the judge validates her person with nice words. It was time to know what the results were, as only one man could be father of the day. This case was so messy and sensitive, Judge Lauren had to recommend their free counseling services.
Mr. Rich is not the father. The next result is for Mr. Matthews. Mr. Matthews, you are not the father. It seems like you were surprised, Mr. Matthews.
I am.
These results are for Mr. Drumgold. Mr. Drumgold, you are the father.
Exactly.
What would you do if you found out your dad may not really be your father? Well, Ms. Ferguson had brought her mother to court because she had come to believe that her mother's husband, Ken Ferguson, who had raised her entire life, was possibly not her father. She had petitioned the court to obtain the truth.
Miss Ferguson, you've brought your mother to court today because you were recently shocked to learn that Ken Ferguson, who raised you your entire life, may not be your biological father. You have petitioned the court for paternity test.
The million-dollar question was how she had arrived at such a painful conclusion by herself, and what had happened to frost the relationship between Ms. Ferguson and her mother. Dysfunctionality and extramarital affair admissions may have been the culprit.
On Mr. Ferguson, whom we'll hear from in a moment. Munsell, please tell me, how did your relationship with your daughter get to this point?
I have no idea. Just things that were said, things that were done.
It's apparent that you feel badly about it. I see the emotion on your face.
Yeah.
Are there certain particular regrets that you have?
Yeah.
But you
I tried
understand
best I
that
could.
she has a right to know who her father is.
Ms. Ferguson decides to reach out to her mom's husband to confess her knowledge of her mom's affairs to him after several attempts at communicating with her mom failed, a gesture that isn't appreciated by her mother, to say the least.
Guy friends and her other friends, not even the husband. So
Okay.
me and him met up.
You
She
met
knew
up
we were
with-
my mom's husband, my stepfather.
Your stepfather?
Yes.
Okay.
We met up and we started talking, and I confessed everything I knew about the past.
Okay.
I knew she was cheating on him.
Ms. Ferguson attempts to explain why she snitched on her mother and hits a sharp edge as a very emotional and pissed Mrs. Ferguson walks out on her and the whole courtroom while saying some very rude things. She had clearly lost it, as she didn't care about disrespecting the judge either.
Her
perfect, and I'm not here to be degraded like this by my own child.
I know. I don't want to degrade you. But why do you keep doing it? Look at what you're still doing today. Just always make people feel bad for you. Doesn't she? She just always does that. She's about to
But Miss Munsell,
no. See, this is what you do. You always walk away. You never can talk.
Shut up.
Mrs. Ferguson's flair for unfaithfulness had affected her daughter's life and shaped her social interactions in the most twisted way possible. Apparently, her daughter had come to emulate her behavior, and she had fully supported that particular behavior. This was quite outrageous.
I thought cheating was okay. I cheated on every person I was with until today. And the person I'm with today can't stand my mom.
and she did support you.
That's the only thing she's ever supported me with.
Surprisingly, a long conversation with her stepfather, who she believed to be her father at the time, had raised concerns that she may not be her father's daughter. Mr. Ferguson is introduced into the witness box, and it is clear that he also had doubts but was hoping strongly his stepdaughter was his child.
Your life, you believe Mr. Ferguson was your father.
All my life. We were talking for about 4 hours, and when he told me, I became quiet because it hit me with realization like, wow, you know, I've seen her sleep with so many guys that this doesn't shock me at all.
Why do you have the doubt?
When I first met her at a party, I found out after this because that's when we met. She slept with 4 guys that night.
However, Ms. Ferguson wasn't finding the idea of her daughter airing her business of keeping multiple partners to the public funny, and she expresses that with lots of tears as she loses her cool and exits the courtroom.
Made her know that she cheated on me.
Came here for you to do this, and that's what you're gonna do, is you're gonna drag it all out. When you stood there and you told me all it was to find out about your dad.
Relationships had been damaged possibly beyond repair by this case, but only the truth could set everyone free. The truth is revealed. Ms. Ferguson works out the courtroom, completely losing her chill and kicks of her shoes in tatty lobby. This mom had totally lost her chill.
I told you I want to repair our relationship
Well, there
too.
is no repair
and
now.
You won't open up.
There's
See?
no
you always
Stop.
give up on
Let
us.
me
Yes,
finish.
I'm sorry.
I'm not a perfect mom. I never tried to be. You know, I did what I could do.
So,
But I love you, and I never once regretted having you.
In the case of Ferguson versus Munsell, when it comes to Alicia Ferguson, Mr. Ferguson, you are her father.
Imagine finding out your dad may not be your father through an argument being had by your father and mother. The Jacob kids had brought out their parents to paternity court to find out who their real father was for that particular reason.
It was possible your dad, Mr. Jacobs, is not your biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Jacob, you're the only father your children have ever known.
Yeah.
Tell us about the argument you and your brother overheard.
He coming out the room, going to the kitchen saying, well, those ain't my kids anyway, so I...
The stakes were quite high for the mother as her kids were not playing in the slightest. Her daughter was quite crushed as she had one of the most important days of her life coming up, and she definitely needed her father. At this point, Ms. Razor was crashing out and her mother was completely losing her cool.
This is the only man that I know for all my life. How many men do you know sit in a delivery with their daughter when they're having a baby? Is there something that you need to tell me? Get married in January. He's supposed to walk me down this aisle. And you gotta tell me.
Because I don't know, Precious. I just don't know.
Grandma said that might be my father that I look like.
And I overheard at a cookout, somebody...
Things only escalated further as the daughter walked out of the court at the thought of another man possibly being her father. She had only known one dad, and he had been there for her whole life.
Whoever Tommy was.
I never doubted the fact that he was my father because he's always been there no matter what. That's not my father. No,
There's a possibility I could be your father.
So you do admit that you had a sexual relationship with Mr. Farmer around the time.
Mrs. Jacobs admits she had been involved with Mr. Farmer's at the time she had conceived one of her kids, and so that made him potentially a father to only one of her kids. Mr. Jacobs was not aware of a possible third-party claim to his kids.
Not having a sexual relationship with him during the time Hector was only be Miss Razor's father. Yes. Established that you all refer to each other possibly as brother and sister, like play brother. You're not related biologically. You're not real sisters and brothers.
I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he existed.
You never knew he existed? You never knew he existed?
In a shocking turn of events, the court results revealed that Mr. Jacobs was not one of the kids' fathers, but it wasn't the child they were suspecting. Feelings are at an all-time high as a very disappointed and shaken Ms. Razor leaves the courtroom, and more discoveries are made in Judge Lauren's chambers.
Mr. Farmer.
Yes.
You are not.
Yes!
Her
Oh, my God! Oh!
In the case, Mr. Jacobs, you are not Hector's father.
Oh!
Let me get my kids, sir. Let me get my children.
She is scandalous.
Getting caught in a love triangle didn't only happen in the movies, as Ms. Harris was right smack in the middle of a huge showdown between her boyfriend Mr. Murray and her ex-boyfriend Mr. Donaldson.
Men in the running for the same 18-month-old baby.
Ms. Harris, you have been caught in a love triangle. There are 2 men in court today. Your current boyfriend, the plaintiff, Mr. Murray, and the defendant, your ex-boyfriend, Mr. Donaldson.
Love triangles were definitely always unforgettable in court, as they were always very dramatic and intense, and most certainly the judge knew she was in for a show. Mr. Donaldson had told a very pregnant Ms. Harris that he likes another girl. He definitely was not kidding, as he had gone out of his way to ensure he wasn't there when it mattered.
They are both in court today to prove paternity. Tell me about your relationship with Mr. Donaldson.
From my understanding, we was dating. But then when I got pregnant, he told me he had feelings for another girl. He told me that he didn't want to be with me. So I was basically alone during my pregnancy. He came to the hospital with his mom when I had her.
So wait, you're dating Mr. Donaldson, you're in a relationship.
Mr. Murray's mom was in court, and she revealed some very surprising facts about the case. One thing was for certain, they had accepted that Mr. Donaldson was the father of the baby until another man stepped in, and things became very awkward.
You know about this pregnancy, ma'am?
I did not find out about it until she was about 5 months, maybe.
You never knew your son was possibly the father of this child?
When he told me about it, I accepted that he was, because that's what Chastity stated, that he was the dad.
Everything had come crashing when an impromptu visit from Mr. Murray's family member had revealed the presence of another man in Ms. Harris's life. To thicken the plot, Mr. Murray had received a message from someone who may or may not be Mr. Donaldson claimed paternity of the child.
You start having doubts that Anaya is your grandchild.
The thing that really changed my mind is when my mother went to pick the baby up and saw Fred.
Oh, so Mr. Murray, why do you believe you could be the biological father of this child?
One day I was on Facebook and I got a message from Jalen, and he told me that the baby could possibly be mine.
Mr. Donaldson's amnesia on whether he had sent a particular message or not definitely made things even more awkward in court. Even the judge was confused about the order of things, so the truth had to come even faster than before to smooth things out.
I don't recall.
And wait, what, you just saw a message on your account. And what did you say when you got that?
I said, are you sure?
Let me try to understand all this. Mr. Murray, what do you remember? She was in a relationship with Mr. Donaldson at the time, but you all ended up having a sexual encounter during that time?
Yes.
The truth came, and it was a little too much for us all. Especially for Ms. Harris, simply couldn't keep it together as she lost every iota of composure and ran out the courtroom asking for the cameras to be put away.
In the case of Murray versus Gerald Donaldson, Mr. Gerald Donaldson, you are not the father. Mr. Murray, you are not the father.
I can't sit here no more.
Miss Harris?
I don't want to be on the camera no more, no.
There was the age-long dilemma of being stuck between the rock and the hard place. Mr. Hughes was stuck between his mom and his former girlfriend. Apart from paternity concerns, she was suing for defamation, asking for quite the sum for damages as a result of certain offensive posts made on social media.
Mr. Hughes, you say you're stuck between your mother and your ex-girlfriend. You're suing Miss Jackson for $1,000. She posted comments on social media, "Your family are deadbeats."
Ms. Jackson believed Mr. Hughes' mom was actively sowing dangerous seeds in her son's hearts concerning who is the father of the child. Ms. McBirth only has some shocking alliteration of adjectives to describe Ms. Jackson in the meanest way possible. The reason why she really believed her son wasn't the father. She had evidence to prove her claims.
McBirth has been poisoning her son, convincing him he's not the biological father.
This woman is trouble. Trash, trouble, and trifling. That's what she is. Nothing like my son or any member of my family.
Piece of evidence, Jerome, may I see that, please? A photo of your son and the child?
There's no way that could be my grandchild or my son's baby.
Ms. McBirth's comments on Ms. Jackson's son's appearance, which she had hinged the basis of her evidence, got quite nasty with horrible racial undertones by all indications. This was only the beginning with Ms. McBirth.
I have
no idea, to be honest.
Because it's all the way white. Everything I see got powder puff on it. I don't see no chocolate nowhere, okay?
How long have you been in a relationship?
15, 18 months.
And was he the only person you were intimate with during that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Jackson had been dating Ms. McBirth's son for quite a while and maintained her faithfulness to the relationship. However, there was another family member who had even more vitriol for Ms. Jackson, and that was Mr. Hughes' sister. She hated Ms. Jackson's guts and had only vile things to say. Was there any truth to what the mother and daughter had to say about Ms. Jackson?
No chocolate nowhere, okay?
How long have you been in a relationship?
15, 18 months.
And was he the only person you were intimate with during that time?
Yes, ma'am.
She lying.
Yes, ma'am.
This DNA right here, you are a vampire, you are just a fly-by-night. All she basically was for him was a snack cake on the side of his meal.
The child's skin color seemed to be the recurring reason for doubt, or in Ms. McBirth's case, absolute certainty the child couldn't possibly be hers. The sister drops a bomb in court, and the mother abandons all decorum and breaks out into the most nasty song to taunt Ms. Jackson.
A newborn, I kind of glanced over there and I seen this little white baby. I knew it wasn't mine.
Our children come in all colors.
She told me he was
white.
When I first met the girl, she said, "Hey, this is my brother's baby." She said, "Yes, I think." She was like, "Oh, okay." She was all for it. At that time frame, she was all for it, the DNA test.
It was time to get Mr. Hughes' side of the story, and it turned out that his dad was a complete white man, and that is why he had believed in the possibility that the child was his. His sister says the nastiest thing in response to his claims, and even the judge is visibly taken aback.
You believe you are Elijah's father?
I just gave him the benefit of the doubt because I'm biracial. My father's white.
That child is not my son's, okay?
My father's a brown-haired, blue-eyed dude, so.
She gonna freak him after this.
So now wait a minute, you're accusing your brother.
He just told us that it wasn't his baby. So how?
When did he tell you this?
That little boy got a bridge.
We're looking at the bridge of the nose.
Right.
They look alike. His youngest two, his youngest daughter and his son.
More bickering and even more nasty words are aimed at Ms. Jackson's character. It was time to address the defamation claims amidst all of the chaos, and the results are quite underwhelming. It was time to get answers on the most important question in court that day.
It was about a month ago, and I heard her tell another guy, "Cash, come on with daddy."
I've heard him call other dudes daddy, though. She makes it hard on herself, basically, because she throws a lot of doubts in the situation.
And my son sees like a tall, light-skinned guy with a hat on. He's like, "Daddy."
That man was black as my mom. You liar.
I don't have proof of the false statements, and for that reason, I have to dismiss your claim.
The paternity test results were clearly more than the very obnoxious mother and daughter bargained for, which caused a very loud rejection of the court's professionally obtained results. The mother is so upset she starts to trash up the courtroom as she throws a really huge tantrum because of the DNA test results. This mother had lost her shit in court.
Mr. Hughes, you are Elijah's father.
No! That's a lie! That's a lie! That's a lie! You a lying trick. What did you do? I'm through. I know that's a damn lie. I know that's a damn lie. I'm sick of it. Somebody fix it.
In this case, a mother and daughter duo are in court on behalf of their dead son and brother to deny the paternity of a 2-year baby he allegedly fathered before he passed.
After your son, Nafi, was killed, the defendant claimed she was pregnant with his baby. And you don't believe Nafi is her father.
We were going out, and Miss Manning called her, told her that she was possibly pregnant, and then I contacted Miss Manning.
Having to find out in the most non-reassuring way that her son had fathered, a kid may have given the mother a completely bad impression of the whole situation. She had lost her son to violence, and their lives had changed forever.
We were going out, and Miss Manning called her, told her that she was possibly pregnant, and then I contacted Miss Manning. I've seen Miss Manning in the past, so I wanted to know, being that my son wasn't here.
However, Ms. Manning was hurt that they didn't come to her with their doubts. Ms. Manning goes down memory lane on the way she communicated her pregnancy to the other 2 women and their nonchalant reaction to the news. Nevertheless, the mother was active in the baby's life, but things get even messier when the deceased man's girlfriend is brought to testify.
I felt as though they should have came to me if they had any doubts.
Miss Manning, how soon after this tragic event did you find out you were pregnant?
I was 6 weeks pregnant when I was in Job Corps. I called Mrs. Smith to let her know. The response I had got was, "Oh, well, Mrs. Caesar is pregnant as well." And my response was, "Oh, okay."
Mrs. Caesar was another woman he was dating?
The boy's mother discusses her woes dealing with both of her son's baby mothers and her struggles with doubt. She had, however, tried to ensure that the children from both women had come to know of each other and learned to coexist. All she wanted was the truth as her emotions overwhelmed her.
You were living with her brother, and you were in a relationship.
Yeah, we lived together for at least a year. First thing I called was Mrs. Smith to ask her did she know. Seen the girl, but she didn't know that they had that type of a relationship.
I've made sure from the birth of both girls that they knew each other because it helped in my healing process.
In a shocking plot twist, the DNA test results performed by the court reveal a devastating news, and the plaintiff were clearly affected by the results. But Ms. Manning's reaction to the results were callous, and yet so dramatic as she even wanted to leave the court.
Ms. Smith is not related.
Can I leave?
Just take a deep breath. I know how desperately you were hoping this was a piece of your son.
I'm the one that told her that.
You feel like you opened up, but you understand you had to tell her.